Top of the morning, the afternoon, and the evening to you, whomever you may be, wherever you may be watching, looking, or listening. It's your boy Anthony Moore. And Mo, for those of you who may know for sure, and welcome to the Late Night Shift Live. Man, I got a couple questions for you before we get into it. And the first one is this: are the streets truly dead given the Pooh Shiesty fallout? Second question: did we mishandle the Russell? Lastly, are we as a culture one that truly values the voice of a woman? I got to be honest with you, dog. I don't know, but something tell me we going to find out, and we're going to get into it right after this. Squee bop, dee dop, she dop, ooh. Yeah, watch the duty. We got the Late Night Shift live. Yeah, it's the Late Night Shift live. It's the Late Night Shift live. Yeah. And now for your host, the incomparable Anthony Moore. Yes, Sirski, man. Welcome to another episode and edition of the Late Night Shift Live. Now, if you are a first-time watcher or listener, you come on back round now. You hear you show them boys how you do it up in Harlem there, boy. And if you are a part of my faithful few, my community, the Brain Trust, I love you from the bottom of my corazon. Now, as you may have seen, we had Brandy, we had LaRussell, and we had Pooh Shiesty on the front of the cover. Now, things have been swirling for a week or two, considering where you get your information from and who you actually are. Do you care about these things? But I truly believe there are things that need to be talked about. Now, as I said before, I am your host, Anthony Moore, and for those of you who know for sure, and welcome to the Late Night Shift Live. This is a show dedicated to shifting the culture's perspective with unadulterated truth and a little bit of grace, one story at a time. We are not salacious or gossipy in nature. So the goal is to keep it real. That is real relevant, real player, and real live. Now, before we get into it, we got a comment in the building. We got Dion who said, yo, I would join if it was a panel. We ain't got no panels now. I ain't gonna lie to you. And Miss Reese said, hey, how you doing? One of my faithful few. Now, I want to get into it by first addressing Brandy Norwood. So for those of you who may have been living under a rock, let me briefly fill you in. March 31st of 2026, she put out something entitled Phases, a memoir, where she talked about different things that she has dealt with over this career of hers. For all of us who may know, Brandy was introduced very early on the scene, having a magnificent voice, going on to be an actor, etc., and then later being a mother. So she talks about a lot of things within this memoir, one of them being her struggles with bulimia, the other, a fatal car accident in 2006. And lastly, the part that I would like to get into is her relationship with Wanye Morris, one of the singers from Boyz II Men. Now, my question was, at the beginning of the show, are we a culture that values the voice of a woman or of women? I am not a platform that believes in pandering to women in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I do believe in speaking the truth in love, and some things should just never be acceptable. Now, I think it was about 11 years ago, to be exact, Boyz II Men was, in fact, on the Breakfast Club, and they had a conversation about music, of course, but one of the things that got brought up was the romance that was between Brandy and Wanye. Now, just do the math. 11 years ago, Brandy was not an adolescent, but at the same time, if you date back to when they talked about these things, they got into some things that I considered unacceptable. I asked that question at the beginning of the show because Brandy faced a lot of backlash for the things that she detailed in her memoir. We as Black people love to pick and choose when we like to take issue with what people say, the truths that they tell, and question if they're even ever truths at all. And so, as I looked at this, I just felt like the backlash that was given to Brandy, and to women, a lot of times in particular, for telling their truth, or talking about the industry from their perspective, their struggles and how they maneuver through it. They are name called a lot of the times, ridiculed, said to be complicit in a lot of things. I would be honest in saying that I don't believe that first of all, that Brandy was actually valued for what she said. And I know that we like to live on the narratives in 2026 about Black women being protected, about women in general being protected, right? No means no. All of those things, right? So in this situation with Brandy and Wanye, Brandy in the memoir said that she was 15 years old when she did in fact engage in a relationship with Wanye, one of the singers from Boyz II Men. Now, before we even go into furthermore of the story, Wanye was considered to be 21 plus. We'll just say that 21, 22. I'll say this as being a man who has 3 daughters, all varying in different ages, 19, 6, and 5. You could never convince me that it is okay ever in life for my daughter at 15 to date someone 18, let alone 20 plus years old. I think the idea of trying to put something out there that it is okay because you're in the industry to quote unquote explore, do different things like that is a very dangerous game to play. Once again, having 3 kids, having 3 girls, I don't think that this in any capacity should ever be acceptable. To believe that that is considered. Now, I understand in other cultures too, as an aside, quinceañera is an age in Hispanic culture where you are considered to be a woman. It is your being birthed or coming into the age of being a woman. That ain't the same in the culture that we grow up in. And I think it is dangerous when you get to go on the Breakfast Club and make certain asides and assertions about what the nature of the relationship was. When you look at Charlemagne and the things that he said, of course, this is back when Angela Yee was still a part of the show, and she triggered the comment that brought about this conversation. And Charlemagne jokingly stated that, oh, he was boning Brandy, right? And in the memoir, this is a part of the issue that I take with the whole situation in as a whole is, why is it when it comes to quote unquote a victim or a woman in this instance, the facts have to be skewed based off of what a man says, right? Sometimes right is right, wrong is wrong. Sometimes the facts are just the facts, and there are no gray areas. No matter what state, and I'm talking about no matter what state that we live in, no matter what we would like to make the truth or not the truth. The reality is this: 15 is 15, and if Brandy says in a memoir that she was 15 years old and that she did in fact engage in a relationship, sexual and otherwise, with a grown man, you are absolutely by the legal age, a grown man. You can drink, you can do anything at 21 plus in America for sure. They then went on to joke about, oh, I was young too. I was a young man too. And then the facts were skewed. I'm not here to say that that facts can't, that sometimes things can't be misconstrued, but things like this, I just don't agree with. She talked about in the memoir about how she had to live a lie based off of the persona of who she was and the things attached to her, lying about being married, having a baby, things of that nature. So it is what it is in that regard, right? But I believe that coming from this standpoint, the facts are what the facts are. He then went on to say that no, she was 16 or 17, right? And that she was old enough to get it. And then when Charlemagne asked about, well, was it legal in the state that you were in? Leading me to believe that even somebody who at that point in time, Charlemagne could be very racy in what he brought up and what he talked about, and even the nature of the things that he discussed, could be baiting for something there. But maybe, just maybe, a guy who has a certain level of brilliance to him, even as a guy like Charlemagne, was asking that because he did know particular facts. And he said that, oh, we were always moving around in different states. Wanye saying, well, we were moving around in different states, so it was legal wherever we was at. Something about that. And y'all let me know in the comments if I'm way off base here or if this is right on par. Something about that just doesn't sit right in my corazon, in my spirit, in my shanana, if you so will. I just believe that there are a lot of vultures. When we look at the industry, whether that is music or entertainment in general, there are plenty of horror stories from people who grew up as Disney stars, the Miley Cyruses of the world, the Orlando Browns of the world, and plenty more, where these people need tons of therapy, where they are drugged out, where they are thrown out like trash after they've been used up by the industry. And do I know any of these people personally? No, none of us do. We can only, as a court of opinion, public opinion that is, take the facts that are given to us and to be able to come up with a grand conclusion about what we see about these situations. I take anybody 20 plus years old, 21 to 22 years old, dating somebody who is in their mid-teens to have a level of manipulativeness to them. It doesn't matter the sexual attraction or the bonds that can be grown from being on tour with somebody. Those type of relationships should never happen. And if we're being honest, these type of things happen on a regular basis. We as a culture, and that is a term that I use very loosely because we take anything that we agree upon in masses as being the thing that represents a culture. It's starting to make me ask the question, what is culture? What is real? What is our real culture as a Black people? Because we take such pride in saying that we move the needle and we dictate what the culture is. And I'm starting to believe that culture is deemed whatever is acceptable or unacceptable by the masses at any given time. When we talk about underaged kids, it doesn't matter how you look at it. It doesn't matter how you slice it. Being young, right? When the roles are reversed, I'm glad that when it comes to situations like high school or middle school, when teachers, male and female, were sleeping with members of the opposite sex, that they were actually put in prison. But there's a thing that the reality is that no matter what you think or believe, Brandy Norwood, whether 15 or 16, was no grown woman. And that is a fact. Bruce Wayne Glass in the building, my guy. Appreciate you for tuning in. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Y'all make sure to speak to Bruce Wayne Glass in the chat. You feel me? But yeah, it's just certain aspects of this that I just can never be okay or at peace with. Ideas of love and safety are not readily and properly functioning in anyone, in anyone in their early 20s, let alone a teenager. And so it just comes off as very pariah-ish, like you're feeding off of something and feeding into something from someone, selling them hopes and dreams, whether of love or relationship, that I just can never get with. And so after he made those comments, he said, no, it was a relationship. It was a time. And it's nasty to me. It is nasty, the idea that we could sell certain ideas about love and what relationship is in situations where if it was my daughter or your daughter, the person viewing this, that it would never be okay. 15, 16, it doesn't fly. We've had people, athletes, that have had far less age gaps, um, and went to prison for engaging in such activities where assertions were made. And not every time that those things happen, they were true. There are plenty of people who have been wrongfully accused of having unnatural or inappropriate relationships with people younger than them that have went to prison falsely. My issue is that we look at people through the lens of what we condone based off of what they've meant to us or what they've contributed to our lives. We condone things based off of affections or adorations that we have for people. For example, Let It Snow, one of the greatest holiday Christmas songs ever, performed by Boyz II Men and Brian McKnight. Those type of things draw us in and blur the lines between what's acceptable and not acceptable because it makes us produce a feeling that we feel familiar with. Bended knee, end of the road. Those type of things, unfortunately, and the reality is those type of things can make us view people in a light where we push other people off to the side. Boyz II Men has forever been relevant in all of our lives for an extended period of time, over 20 years. And let's not forget the anthem to mothers, Mama. So those type of things, realistically, if you will be real with yourself, have affected the way that we would view something like this. And the fact that in our culture, women they're women. There's something for us to do. Now, I get it. We live in a time where on the opposite end of the spectrum, women have been lauded for having degrees and money and being independent. And all of those things are fine and well within the box that they exist in. But on this side of the spectrum, I don't believe that Brandy was given the true just due from the situation that she was able to speak her truth from in her memoir, that it should have been taken more serious. Now, statutes of limitations, whatever, but I just personally didn't agree with that. So from the standpoint of what I brought up these songs and I talked about the reality of what they make us feel and how they skew the way we view it, do you agree with that? Put it in the chat below. Do you really agree that music, and specifically from people that have helped us connect to certain things within a timeline for us? I still remember hearing certain songs and certain smells that take me back to a time specifically in my life, whether it was good or bad. So if you don't believe me, need I bring up R. Kelly? Now, you can say what you want to say about R. Kelly, but R. Kelly has etched himself into the hearts and minds of billions of people across this planet. He has been known for being a creep for a very long time. We only need to go back, well, that it's furthest as we know it to be, his relationship with the late great Aaliyah, where she was clearly underaged, and there are details accounts of them clearly having a relationship when she was not of age by far. But what do we know to be true about R. Kelly? He is one of the greatest hit makers ever. Anytime when you talk about like the R&B Money podcast or different shows where they talk about greatest writers of all time, greatest song makers of all time, R. Kelly is brought up, but it's always with the caveat of, well, I don't know what he did with his personal time and it ain't got nothing to do with me, but just in the lane of music, he's one of the greatest we've ever seen or heard of. What is the thing that makes us feel so fondly about him, despite the issues that we would have within ourselves and our own moral compass about who he is? Ignition, the remix to Ignition, Trapped in the Closet, 12 Play. And the list goes on and on and on. Music has always touched our soul in a way that blurs the lines. Now, I won't belabor the point on this. We got plenty of show to go to, and I will move on to Pooh Shiesty, but I'll end the Brandy topic with this. Whether you like it or not, Brandy Norwood spoke her truth, and she was, in fact, a victim. whether it was lies of a relationship, whether it was playing on a far less developed prefrontal cortex than a Wanye Morris, she was absolutely a victim. Moving on. What is the topic, bro? So we are talking about the music industry. We just got done, and appreciate you for hopping on Soldier Film. We just got done talking about the Brandy Norwood, Wanye Morris situation, where in her memoir phases, she talked about the what I consider to be the inappropriate relationship that she had with Wanye, where she was in her memoir stated that she was 15 years old and she had certain sexual relations with him in an actual relationship that, and if it was any of us and with our own children, our own daughters, we would deem it as far less inappropriate. But we are moving on now to the Pooh Shiesty situation. Now, just for a little context here, Pooh Shiesty was released from a 5-year sentence in the feds, where he served 3 of those 5 years. And I believe that it was actually back in October of 2025. Now, the alleged situation that has got him back into custody of the federal government was a situation with him and the owner of 1017 Records, Gucci Mane, where it is alleged that Gucci Mane was robbed and kidnapped by Pooh Shiesty and 7 other individuals, including Big 30, which is a longtime friend and music maker of Pooh Shiesty. Now, if you've heard about this, please let me know what your thoughts are below. But all of this situation, and not to go into grave detail, because if anybody who seen Pooh Shiesty on this thumbnail and actually knows anything about hip hop or the music industry, you would know certain facts about this. But it did, in fact, allegedly happen January 10th, where there was a situation where Pooh Shiesty wanted out of his contract. He had issues with what was going on. Now, just as an aside, I've done plenty of research as well on this situation, as far as the lawyer of Big 30 did an interview with Vlad TV. I watched Pooh Shiesty talk with Wallow and Gilly on their platform, and I actually do. Let me upload a few things because I do want you guys to see what it is that I actually saw, and I want to make sure that it's actually there too. Because now I know my phone would try to play with me. Hold on, y'all. I don't think I downloaded it, but give me a second. I do have it in my text message. That's what I need to do. I'm going to send it to myself, and then I'm going to let you guys be the deciding factor of what you guys think about this ultimately. So I'm going to share this to my phone. I'm going to let you guys watch this, and then we will go from there. All right, I'm going to share my screen, so give me 2.5 seconds. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, showing your patience. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go from there. All right, hold on. Stream. All right. And this is a question that Wallow asked Pooh Shiesty about what he had experienced and what was his thought process. All right, here we go.
Remember the moment where the breakthrough came, when you said, when I get out, I'm done with all this dumb shit? Was it a moment where you just, you was going through it so much, or you got a revelation where you just like, this ain't it, man. I ain't with this.
The alarm clock came on.
Yeah, alarm clock.
I been knew that shit wasn't what's up, though. I ain't gonna lie. I ain't for that, man. I'm a free world type of nigga, like, ride fast cars, count money, put that shit on, So I been knew, like, this ain't me here. Like, I'm doing whatever come with it, but this ain't the final destination for sure. Ain't no motherfucker way. It's easy to get caught up in there. So I'm gonna tell you about a time, bro. I had just did like 6 months in the hole. 6 months straight, day for day, stuck in the cell, shower every 3 days. No commissary, no none of that. In the hole down there, and this bitch naked. And on top of that, I'm bucking like, cause like I said, like,
You remember the
Add myself back in. So that part alone mattered to me for this reason alone. If you watch the interview, and I encourage you to go check it out, it's cool. Personally, I'm a Wallow fan. Gilly is goofy to me. He offers no value a lot of the times, but to tell some joke about Wallow being in prison and some type of homosexual activity that he partook in, he doesn't add much value to the show other than that. But Wallow demonstrated to be a person who was in Pooh Shiesty's corner 1,000%. He talked about, who was in the courtroom the first time around, how we tried to give him game to keep him out of this situation the first time before he actually went to the feds for the situation, right? And Pooh Shiesty talked about how he ultimately was lying to Wallow about him being chill and about how he actually, didn't really, he heard the information, but it didn't really hit him until he was in the situation again, right? And Wallow was asking him like, hey, man, what was it that triggered when you were in prison this last time, when you were in the feds the last time? What was the thing that triggered for you that said, I'm done with this? And then Pooh Shiesty went on to talk about, experiences that he had and how the lifestyle that he lives, money, driving fast cars, dressing a certain way, how all those things were very indicative of the lifestyle that he wanted to live and how he was ultimately a free world kind of guy. My question to y'all that I pose as a result of the video that we just watched and the statement that I just gave you is, what could be so bad? And I'm not negating the fact that something could be truly bad in Pooh Shiesty's life or the contract that he was in, or you never know the frame of mind that could drive people live or react in the ways that they do, right? I'm a psych guy. Like, I went to college and got a degree in psychology because I was very interested in the way that the mind works. And so we can't psychoanalyze why Pooh Shiesty moved the way that he moved or did the things that he did. But if you could for a second, some of us have come from these type of environments, maybe you grew up in it, but not of it. What could cause a man to move in such a way? Who just got out of prison, who, if you look at that show, at the end of the show, he pulls out large quantities of money from a backpack. He then gives a gift, a Louis Vuitton wallet and a hat to Wallow and Gilly. They then go outside at the end of the interview and shows off a cyber truck. Well, first of all, he shows off 2 rose gold watches. One was a Richard Mille. The other one, I'm not so sure. Maybe it was another type of Richard Mille. He had a cyber truck. He had a Maybach. He had a Ferrari. And something else. I forgot what it was. It was a very, just all rose gold cars, all nice. The reality is this, though. Most of the people who are in that circle, most of the people who champion that music, most of the people who applaud that lifestyle, they love to pay attention to the money, to the cars, to whatever that is that gives this person the fame, the notoriety. But we never seek to find out what the rehabilitation is of those persons' minds, right? Some of these people come from, and I literally, my whole life, grew up in the neighborhood, grew up in the hood for sure. Now, I can't act like I was truly of it. I wanted to be, but that's what I was exposed to. There was always the saying of the angel on your left shoulder and the devil on the right. There was always this aura or this appeal to the idea of being from that street element. What made a man who had already experienced, he talked about having 6 months in the hole and, I'm still barking, because it's this idea of having something that you have to uphold, right? Being in prison, but still saying, I'm not going to lay down for the guards or nobody, right? Everybody, at the end of the day, at your core, you're a man or you're a woman. So there are ethics to however you move, even street ethics. But the idea of believing that it was worth it to go back to prison to get out of your deal. You know, I remember what's my guy that's going super viral right now. The guy, what is his name? He's from Memphis too. I can't remember his name. Wait, what hood you from? That was tough. I appreciate you, bro, because you finna show your ignorance. What hood were you from that was tough? I didn't grow up in a tough neighborhood because what? Because there's a clean cutness to me, or because the shirt I got on, or the glasses, or because I speak with a certain vernacular. This speaks to the ignorance that I'm talking about. I don't have to validate or justify what hood I grew up in because I wasn't one of the people that was dealing with whatever, or you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I didn't have pistols pulled on me. I've been around people selling drugs. Like, your stupidity, and because if you are from this culture, you understand that this is absolutely okay. Please, thank you for clarifying. Nah, see, okay, I'm getting it wrong. Please explain to me what I'm getting wrong. But I'm from Fort Worth. I grew up in Meadowbrook. There was two different parts of Meadowbrook. There was the nice part where the houses was and people grew up there, and then there was a whole nother side of it where the apartments was. You know what I'm saying? Where people was getting unalived on a regular basis. To be honest, people I was around in middle school and high school for sure that lost their lives early. That was in that element. That was of that element where drugs were prevalent. Yeah, I mean, stuff getting shot up, all of that. Like I really did come from that. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't champion it. Stories of it. That's all. I don't like. Once again, and that's why I knew where you were going with that. I don't have to have lived this. I don't have to have shot at people or actually sold drugs to be able to speak to the things that I was around, or because of the fact that I had common sense. Yeah, I was out there on the block. LaShonda laughs about it all the time. Like I talked about bleeding the block. Like I literally went out. It was like for like a week or something like that. Posted up on the block on the other end of my apartments. Like I don't have that's my point though. And see, a lot of the people who live in that element, that's why Pooh Shiesty ends up in the situation that he's in. Because you're truly damned if you do, you damned if you don't. Because people say, what right do you have to speak to certain things because you actually made it out? It's like going to prison or actually selling drugs or being shot or having a bunch of kids or, I didn't see, bruh, it's like I didn't see people get unalived. But back to what I was saying. It's the idea, right, of me sitting out on the block, wanting to be in the element, trying to get jumped into whatever hood block element that was going on at that time, and literally being 15 years old or 16 years old, maybe 15, it probably wasn't 16, 14, 15 years old, not testimony, but I was getting drunk every day. Started having sex at a very young age. And it's like, I came from that. I don't have to justify it for somebody on the internet, but the idea of like, it's poo-pooed upon because I wasn't one of these guys because I didn't go to prison, for anybody watching this, I want you to understand the rabbit hole that you end up going down as a part of trying to justify yourself to people on the internet, right? It's having to explain that, yeah, I almost went to jail for being a part of some stuff when I was young. And, by the grace of God, somebody was able to get me out of a pinch. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to start proving your street cred. Black people are so lost. Black people are so lost because it's like, yeah, you only seen it, you ain't do it. It's like, congratulations to you, man, if you was in shootouts and if you was trapping out a bando, and congratulations, bro. What are you doing to make your neighborhoods better? What are you doing to make sure that we don't got more people look like us that come from where we come from going to the feds, losing their life? If you don't have that, then ultimately we're championing loser lifestyles. Why can I say that? Because we all come from it. Dealing with fatherlessness. No mother. She was a drug addict. Went to prison. Was in prison a majority of my life. Raised by my grandmother. But I got to prove that because I said I grew up in the hood my whole life that, well, what type of hood was it? Now, was it like Atlanta hood or was it like Ohio? Man, knock it off, bro. And that could be a bot for sure. But it's just the idea. It's like, whether it's a bot or not, the idea that that's the type of things that we have to deal with, that's a reality. So anyway, I will go back. So now I got something that I want to play from the DJ Vlad interview, right? Where he was interviewing Big 30's lawyer. And this is my statement. The streets are dead. And I'm about to show you why the streets are dead. Just give me a second. Let me add this clip. All right, here we go.
Where we from won't do that. For real. This East Carolina zone said, well, niggas I fuck with my crew won't do that. We won't snitch on niggas. We stand down for ourselves. Like, if I gotta go, I'm gonna go. I done went before. I don't want to snitch on nigga to save my nobody's life, not even my own. I die.
He says that on camera. He says he would never snitch, not even against his own enemies. He'd rather die than snitch. So now, when this paperwork has gotten released, and there seems to be some indications of Gucci Mane cooperating, like there's videos of people in prison throwing out their Gucci Mane book, because now they consider him a snitch and everything else like that. And I mean, if you think about it, like Gucci is one of the main.
No snitch on niggas. Where we from won't do that. For real. This East Carolina zone said, well, niggas I fuck with my crew won't do that. We won't snitch on niggas. We stand down for ourselves. Like, if I gotta go, I'm gonna go. I done went before. I don't want to snitch on nigga to save my nobody's life, not even my own. I die.
The man said that he ain't telling. He ain't telling on nobody. And he would rather die, or he would rather not live anymore than to tell. This is the foolishness that we come from, right? Where we have to prove ourselves to people, or we live by this code, right? And I have some other thoughts on this, but I'm gonna tell you another thing that made me realize that the streets were gone, that the streets were no more. All of us remember, if you watching this and you have any interest in Pooh Shiesty, or you've watched any interview, then you understand some element of the streets, and you can look no further than the 6ix9ine situation, who, according to the people who were attached to him, worked at a grocery store, who was a regular plain Jane guy in the neighborhood in New York somewhere, and then was able to live and portray that he was a part of a gang and street lifestyle, all in the name of profit. And then the tables turned. When his baby mama got ran through, when he was kidnapped, it was no more street and gang element, because he really didn't come from that. And he told, and people went to prison. And then he has spent the rest of since then. Yeah, somebody put hands on him at the 24-hour fitness or something like that at one point. But that man has been able to freely roam the streets. If we look at a guy like Charleston White, where he has said he's an untouchable guy. He didn't disrespected so many people, and it's true in the name of entertainment, but there was this thing that people made seem like if you were truly of a street element, it didn't matter if you went to jail. But the two main things that have protected a 6ix9ine and a Charleston White, the internet's uncle, who I would love to interview, by the way, basically, they can say what they want to say, but the reality is nobody really wants to go to jail for putting their hands on those people. Nobody, to most people's belief, can talk that freely and be that aggressive and not be from that type of element and go untouched. That's the truth. The streets are deceased. Because ultimately, the guys in blue, they are going to protect those guys. And if it really mattered to make a statement or prove something, then guys like Charleston White, men like Charleston White and 6ix9ine wouldn't exist. They just wouldn't. And I'm not saying that I champion that, because I don't. I'm just saying it's a good thing. That's like trying to still champion the streets is like saying it's still cool for men to not be fathers. Because most of us that grew up in black neighborhoods and families, you hear people talk about not having a father in their home. But we will continue to feed into the nonsense of the culture in the name of, and here's the other thing. And I was talking to my partner about this. Most of the people who talk about Gucci now being, I don't know if it made it to the end of it because I can't hear it on my end, but they talked about people throwing out Gucci's books because now he's a snitch. Most of the people who were throwing those books out, let me ask you this. How many YNs or true gangsters read books? How many people that are really from that element are buying stuff to help support street guys? It's not real. It's people like me who hide, and I'm not saying I do this, but it's people like me and millions of people on the internet who hide behind keyboards and cameras every day who get to determine what's street and what's not street. Congratulations, Pooh Shiesty stands on business. And then if this doesn't work in his favor, he's making music from phones in prison for the rest of his life. There were people who depended on him. Not hang-alongs, tag-alongs. We talking about family, like kids, mama. Those people who now, right or wrong, have to figure it out for themselves. So we applaud Pooh Shiesty for living his raps and standing on business when it was stupidity from the beginning. If people lie about it for entertainment, then we cast them off for that too. We look at Offset recently got tagged in his buttocks, in his buttocks over some money and, got a gambling issue. And he's a rat because he actually said that a guy shot him. That stuff all sounds cool until reality kicks in. Most people will never be put in a situation where they have to make a decision on whether it's their life or somebody else's. And we talking about going to prison, telling the truth about what happened. There's no G code that people really live by, no matter what they say. Now, if you are, and I've recently binge watched The Wire, and it's a really great show. But the reality is, shows like that and cap rap, where people talk about living lifestyles that they haven't lived since, it perpetuates this drill culture and stupidity that we see to this day. Sidebar, thing that I thought about. Slime, which Young Thug or Thug, Pooh Shiesty, and what's my boy from Chicago? Please do not play this boy. Please do not play the little boy in the club because we do not listen to rats. I forgot his name, but him. All of these guys all went on Wallow show, Gilly show, and all ended up going to prison. Literally. So another question that I have is there any real getting through to these guys? Is there any real getting through to the Pooh Shiesties of the world? Because most people don't want to deal with them. So I could applaud Wallow for really showing up and standing by these guys and really trying to teach them something that he didn't. But I don't know if there's something that can really be done about this. We have to realize that Gucci Mane is a businessman with family and a wife and real responsibilities. So he wasn't supposed to say what actually happened. And then here's the other thing. And we got a comment here. No, not Drake. I know Drake. Thank you, Bruce. I'm talking about the guy who's the feature on there. He's from Chicago. What is his name? Dang, what is his name? Drake got a Drake. Anyway, I'm not a real fan of his music like that, but anyway. So here's the thing, right? What did we learn? What did we learn from the Young Thug situation when it comes to the feds? Is that the things that are in your music will directly and from the can somebody tell me what that guy's name is? Lil Durk. Okay. So Durk, Thug, Shiesty, all went on that show. All have been back to prison after being on the show. I'm not saying that there's a correlation. It was just weird when I thought about it. But even from Durk's situation, Thug's situation, and I'm sure if they want to, Shiesty's situation, the feds will use lyrics. Now, some things will be determined inadmissible. That's just a part of the game. But who's going to say something about Gucci Mane putting out a diss track where you're pretty much implicating what happened in the studio to a certain extent? See, you can hide behind, and this is where we got to stop the cap, right? This is the cap rap right here, where we got to stop the cap where Gucci is just being a real street dude, but you're absolutely using things in your song that could be used in court. And then the thing is, you can put your hands up and say, hey, man, I'm just rapping, man. Stop. It's the same thing in drill culture. They talk about it. They give times, dates, what the dude had on. You did everything except talk about what you actually did. And a lot of these drill situations, they literally say if it ain't on live, it didn't happen. If you don't take a picture, it didn't happen. This is not smart. It shouldn't happen, but it's also still not smart. As a black man and a culture, we are not allowed to progress. That is my thought process. As a black man and as a culture, we are not allowed to progress. We are held to a standard, even if it's harmful to who we have become. It's just a bunch of cap. People can only you never can redo a first impression. If when you first met me, I was this type of person, 9.5 times out of 10, 9.99 times out of 10, that is who people are going to remember you as. You damned if you do, you damned if you don't. My other question is, should there be grace for a Pooh Shiesty, a considerably younger guy who has maneuvered through this industry, seen a lot of success, but has found it very hard to escape what he's come from. Is there grace for him? Because the courts aren't going to show grace. It just ain't going to happen. You got prior situations from your past that put you in there that are centered around this type of element. But he's supposed to stand on business. This, you know what movie came to my mind when I thought about this situation? Straight Outta Compton. There are stories that are floated around about rappers going into CEOs and big wigs offices in the 80s and 90s to get out of their contracts, where they smashed up stuff in the office, where they threatened the life of the executives, and it worked. But this ain't Ice Cube in the 90s. This ain't Willie D from the Ghetto Boys, who talked about how he went in there and did the same thing. And yeah, he got out of his contract, but he also got blackballed. These days, you are going to prison. Because let's be very clear here. The most feared man in America is still and always will be a white man. It is what it is, kinfolk. It is what it is. So I would like to think that there is room for us to progress and to get better and to move differently and to think differently and to live differently and to be around for our kids. And does this speak for the masses? No. There are tons more black men who are living in a way that is honorable to society. But we are just privy to the ones like this situation. We applaud those who handle business matters in street ways, even if we ain't the ones that are on the receiving end of the damage. Hey man, at least you stood on business. But at what cost? Men have to go back to being real stand-up men again. And it's unfortunate that this is what we experience. This is our norm. This is why we can't walk into certain stores. We are considered soft if we don't put our hands on people or put our lives and our families' well-being in jeopardy for standing on business. The other truth of this is, I do believe that Shiesty believed that Gucci still live by that code. But the problem is, you wasn't the only person in that office. There's people in there that have never been in that situation before, and thanks to what's going to happen to you, possibly, allegedly what happened, they will never be in that situation again. We go into these situations and prove what people think about us to be true. Let's not ever forget that the ski mask was termed the Shiesty for a reason. The worst thing that we could have ever did was shame people for not living their raps. Now these boys feel like they got to prove it to be true. Where we from, gangsters and villains were always rooted for and supported because of what they represented in our communities. You give a little mama, you give a little money to the grandma that need medicine. You put a couple dollars in the kid's pocket. What gangsters represented back in the day, though, even though it was still a bad element, it wasn't dudes with too skinny jeans on, big shirts with Dracos in their pants. There was order. Dudes wore suits. They were respectable. They had front businesses. I'm not saying that it was okay. I'm just saying that what it represented was something vastly different, at least in appearance, than what we see today. And if you look at any movie where there's a Man with a Mission, the John Q's of the world, or any of those movies where somebody has been cheated, we root for the bad guys because that was our way of sticking it to the man, whoever the man is. Almost every man's favorite movies were some gangster movie, whether that be Goodfellas, Godfather, 1, 2, and 3, Heat, Carlito's Way, TV shows like Power, The Sopranos, The Wire. All of these things were applauded, and we loved it because it represented us trying to get our little piece of the pie, taking something back. Bad men have always been considered good because they have done more for us than the people we felt should have been doing something for us. As a result, rappers, drug dealers, athletes were the only way that we ever saw ourselves achieving or being successful. That's the danger zone. Because you can't run fast, jump high, punch hard, run all of those things. You can't do that stuff for the rest of your life. So if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a way to understand finances, then not to mention that only 1% of the world is going to ever be successful using their physicality in that way. Most people are going to chase a pipe dream. To become successful as a rapper like the 50 Cents, the Babies, the Kendrick Lamars, the J. Coles of the world, that's a pipe dream in itself as well. You need so much serendipity and luck and kismet to make those things happen. Being a drug dealer, never knowing what it would be like to be in an interrogation room facing 30 years because you were caught with keys in your trunk. It's a setup. But that is our measure of success. That is our way, our pipe dream way of being successful. I'll end the Pooh Shiesty segment here by saying this. Pooh Shiesty isn't the problem. We are. Because we don't know our place or who or what is bad anymore. We don't know where to place people or where to place things. So as a result, we live in limbo based off of what is acceptable or unacceptable to us, based off of what we can get. Now, lastly, the biggest picture on this thumbnail, LaRussell, who recently removed himself from social media, rightfully or wrongfully so, came out with a song not that long ago called Heaven Sent. And the clip that he put out was him, the small portion of the song actually, where he demonstrated the people that are considered heaven sent. Whether that be Adolf Hitler, Donald Trump, or Epstein. He said even they were heaven sent. Now, we all know what President Donald Trump means to this era, the wars, all of those things. But then when you start going and looking at people who can demonize and consider somebody like Adolf Hitler, who he was and who he portrayed himself to be, or even an Epstein, the point that he was making, not to speak for LaRussell, he can speak for himself, was not to say that these were great people. He was stating that God made them all the same as he made you. Who may lie to their wife, cheat on their wife, cheat on their taxes, show up to work late every day. I'm not saying that these things are on an equal scale. I'm just saying, he's saying we all come from the same maker. Now, you don't have to like it, but That's what he was saying. Now, just to date back a little bit, LaRussell's downhill trajectory, so to speak, in the public eye at least, started with his remarks from talking about Lil Wayne, where he basically said that Lil Wayne didn't have music that was of depth and that he was talking a bunch of BS, essentially. Now, he did state that he thought Lil Wayne was a genius and that he actually loved his music and that Lil Wayne played a humongous part of his desire to be a rapper and to do the things that he actually does do even to this day. But us being a culture that is only immersed in what we can pull from a 90 or 60-second clip, now he's public enemy number one in the eyes of many. It's interesting to me because what we don't realize is that one way or another, we made LaRussell. Whether it was the people that were running to go to performances in his backyard, who reshared any of his content, who bought into his royalties, who bought merch. We are the people who made LaRussell feel comfortable about feeling the way he felt about his music or the stances that he took. Now, to skip down to a point, I watched a clip right when everything started popping off with the Lil Wayne situation, where he was walking down the street and he was talking about how he had figured out the internet. And although I could rock with his standpoint, looking at this from the right wrong lens, I could say that for somebody who could have far less confidence than him could see this as him being cocky or arrogant or believing something about himself to not be true. I didn't view it that way. But I think one of the gifts that I have is to actually be able to kind of see things through the lens of somebody else. I have an objective view when I look at a lot of things in life. I can still come to the same conclusion as a lot of people, but with the LaRussell situation, I said, he's going to piss off a lot of people with this. When you go back to the Heaven Sent song, his engineer said, hey, I wouldn't do this one. Let's skip. You should probably skip this one. Don't put this one out. He doubled down on multiple interviews about, I'm going to do it, and this is just what it is. For that, I applaud him. Because what a lot of artists and people are missing is that what makes art, what makes us be one of the most amazing country in America is because of the freedoms that we have. And because there's an ability to speak our truth just as it is. I've heard a few people say it. You can't go to these other countries and speak your truth. There's some things that come attached to that. And over here, of course, there are some repercussions for the things that we say and do. It may come in the form of shadow banning. It may come in the form of demonetization. But it's repercussions nonetheless. The other thing is, man, we are good with people in general as long as they agree with us. When you look at the LaRussell situation, when he's dancing around and smiling and, you know, making that music that's from the Bay that he's made us love and gravitate to him, everything was cool. But, and the fact that he was independent, not even in quotes, he was legit independent. But let him turn down a guy like Jay-Z and then say, hey, all right, we can reconvene, but this is what I want, and let me talk to Jay. Let me talk to Jay-Z. And when he does, and then he brags about getting an interview from him and talking to him for hours and catching it on film and all of those things, now he's viewed quite differently. The other thing is we don't like people with confidence. LaRussell, if he's nothing else, is a confident man. who stands on what he stands on. He believes what he believes. He knows who he is. We are so readily drawn to people who have a comeback story, who are building up to something. But most of those people, when they reach their apex, the hero turns villain. And LaRussell is no different. LaRussell is no different than any person that was that came from the bottom, that needed this redemptive story and had this meteoric climb that has now turned into him removing himself from social media, which I still didn't see coming because half of the stuff on social media ain't real no way. We've made it a reality, but it's not our objective reality. Are you familiar with LaRussell? Let me know below. Are you familiar with him? Do you agree with him taking himself off of social media? Do you believe that the outrage that they gave him was justified? The other thing that I came to the conclusion of is we love people until we know that they are truly doing better than us, especially financially. When we know that people got more change than us, even if we knew maybe in a vacuum, oh man, he get into a bag. Let somebody come out and say they make $100,000 a show. It's not just the fact that people can get robbed that they don't talk about their money. It's because people's opinion of you changes vastly when you aren't suffering from the same plight as them. If I'm forever a struggle artist, I'm forever loved and applauded because one day you're going to make it. But most people aren't truly happy with somebody making it if they ain't coming along. That is a fact. So in my attempt to gain a better understanding from what I can do as a person of the media and, a podcaster and curator of content, I went down certain rabbit holes of LaRussell's media. And I'll be honest with you, I wanted to dislike this guy so bad. Going into it, I wanted to not like him. I don't particularly think that Wayne's catalog is as amazing as most people do. I think he has a bunch of mixtapes that don't age well. And I think he has the Carter 1 and 2 that are certified legit albums that are worth re-listens. And then I think all that other stuff is just nonsense. But he's just always so happy, fam. He's just always smiling and dancing. And then when you sit down and listen to him, he knows what he knows. He's lightweight, a genius. He really did have something figured out. Now, I don't know if somebody encouraged him to go off of the internet talking about LaRussell, but I would have stayed there, right in the iron of the fire. He was so convinced when they asked him, did he regret saying certain things? Did he regret, putting a song out? He literally always said no. It doesn't make sense to me that he would absolutely remove himself from social media after taking the stance that he took. I'm like, I went and listened to the Heaven Sent song, and I'm going to be honest with you. It is a phenomenal song. It is a really good song. Just that one little part of the song where he started talking about these people who Heaven sent, that's where I'm like, you just didn't need to put that in there. I mean, it's your art. You can do what you want to do with it. Art is supposed to be subjective. So you have a message that you want to put out, and sometimes people get it, sometimes people don't. But the beauty and the freedom of it, this songbird, this caged bird with a song that I put as my title on the thumbnail, the freeness, the ability to open the cage for that caged bird to sing its song, that's the whole point of having the ability to put your art into the world. We have gone and then told people time and time again, in a country that's built on freedoms, within boundaries, but freedoms to speak our minds, to put our art out, to have a voice, to be heard, and for it to be interpreted with whatever lens that you want to, but you can't redefine what my truth is. You can't redefine how I speak about how I view life. We have absolutely done that time and time again. Cancel culture. Everything is always surrounded around some culture. You can't cancel nobody. I think in a country such as this, you shouldn't even have the ability to. You should support people if you want to. You should not support them if you don't. And if they are truly committing egregious and heinous crimes, then they should absolutely be dealt with the way that they do according to the law. But cancel culture should not exist, because you don't have to be right to improperly peg somebody wrongly or to cancel them. And that's what we so readily do in today's culture. I watched him perform at the Tiny Desk. Beautiful performance. Amazing performance. Interviews were almost impeccable. Spotless. Just amazing. He's a great guy. And a father to boot. Here's the other thing. You don't have to like this. It's fine. I don't expect you to. But when you talk about Trump, when you talk about LaRussell, and people, even if we go into the Orlando Browns of the world, or you talk about 6ix9ine or any of these type of people, they're the same person. They just have a different way of executing. And the way that they handle the spotlight is so vastly different. They all end up still falling victim to public opinion, though. We love a crash out. We love to see people rise and then fall. To see people reach the highest height and then end up back with all of us. Most people get the success not from being like other people. Although success leaves clues, we're talking about rising to the highest offices and positions and platforms in the world. Those people that I just named, Ray J even, Charlemagne, all have gotten where they have gotten doing the complete opposite of what everybody else does. Getting up and punching a regular clock every day. Showing up late, being inconsistent. All of these things, all of these people have been able to skip the line, so to speak, and become darling in you and I's eyes because they break against whatever the matrix is. So to now see the fallout of many of these people, the Pooh Shiesties of the world, the LaRussells of the world, just goes to show me that you must just be held by your convictions at all times. Don't live in fear of what anybody thinks, because most people are too cowardice to say what they feel anyway and stand on it. So whether that's talking about women not truly being valued or held safely in high regards, like a Brandy Norwood situation, or a Pooh Shiesty being a victim of his circumstance and situations, or LaRussell being truly innovative and creative and different, bucking the system of the industry, being successful without it. Every dog still has his day. But after all, what do I know? Any thoughts, comments, questions before we move on? Listen, At the end of the day, we got one life to live on this side of the cross. Me or you, anybody watching this has no time to waste worrying about what public opinion thinks. If there's something that isn't egregious, that isn't disrespectful, truly in nature, that doesn't harm women and children, we should find a way to do more of that to put our hands to. I am your host, Anthony Moore. This is the Late Night Shift Live, where I hope at least one person's perspective was shifted. I am here weekly at the Mind of a Man Network, and I encourage you to like, to truly comment and subscribe what you think and how you feel about what any of these topics may be. I don't need you to like me or love me. I just need you to be held by what you feel God has convicted you to speak on. As I end every show, and until next time, life is hard enough, so please don't just live elevated, and be exceptional. Until next time, I love you. I do. May the Lord keep you. I pray he will. And I'll see you on the other side. Until next time, peace.